Hi, people. How are you doing? I trust the weekend is going well, um, and I trust everybody is, of course, doing as much as they can to get some rest. Okay, so welcome to the live for today. Not another social network. Thank you for joining. I see you. Now, of course, our topic for today is a very interesting one, really interesting one, and let me just do some little write up here, and I think it's something everybody really needs to benefit from. Now, our topic for today is why single, married, or divorced men hate therapy. Generally, Africans, for some reason, I really don't understand why, but for some reason, we despise therapy so much, and I think it's if something can give results, I think it's really worth exploring. So our guest for tonight is what the one and only Dr. Tunji Babajide, and he's going to be taking us through some very inspiring insights. He's a therapist, professional therapist. He's a coach. He's a life coach, and he will be giving us some wisdom, which I'm very sure would very useful to you, very useful to you. So, thank you for joining, and pretty much now, as a little background and intro, I think I should just say that personally, as a member of this gender, a certified member of this gender, I think I can rightly say that men, honest truth, we don't even like sharing our stuff with people that are not our guys. Like even among the circle of our guys, we are still very skeptical about who to share things with because it might be an issue of you don't know who to trust, you don't know who to tell things, even among your circle. So I think it's important that we really let this information out because okay, I'm trying to attend to something on behalf of our guests. Just give me a minute. Let me see. Okay, so among or who is not for you, but nonetheless, therapy. I think that people don't share the real truth about therapy. Now, I've been involved in therapy for some reason, which I need not share, but I can tell you of a truth that therapy really has its usefulness. And if only you can be very open to trusting another person with info or advising or trusting another person's wisdom and skill, therapy would really go a long way to help. Now, I'll tell you why. Professionally speaking, I'm a divorce lawyer, and I've seen it over and over again. I've had reason to advise clients to explore therapy, and I think that many of them have always come back with positive feedback. Therapy does a lot for you. I'm not a therapist, and I can't speak so much to the topic of therapy, but of a certain, I'm a divorce specialist, and I know that therapy goes a long way to help so many people. So I think I will leave the area of therapy to Dr. Tunji. Okay, is on the call. Okay, I think it's joining in a few minutes. So we need to really understand. It's only the experts that can speak to this topic. Why men run away from therapy? It's good to have you on board, doctor.
It's a pleasure to be here. Um, Apologies last week, I just couldn't make it. It was life issues overtook my schedule. So I apologize to the people who had waited to be able to be a part of that. But we're here today. And I must
Yes.
start by saying that I appreciate the work that you do. Um, in the space that you're in, not many people are bold enough to be able to come up with that legal journey of a specialist in divorce. I've also been instrumental, unfortunately, to advise certain couples to go their separate ways after we had explored all the options. So I know it's a very muddy path, but I want to thank you for choosing to go through that path. The reality is that we're going to have more of it, but yeah, but in fact, I think we need to also talk about some level of partnership, because I've also had women who had come to seek help who are, I don't like to call them victims, who are survivors of domestic violence, who their husbands have sent me threats that they were going to send their boys to beat me because I was teaching their wife a bad thing. I've had that like twice, so I've had to get police and I have to get my lawyer to, step on it. So it's when you are doing social work like this, it's a lot of muddy water,
A lot.
And I really appreciate you for the things that you do. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Doctor. I should be the one appreciating you for taking time out of your schedule to be here, but I mean everything you said is just the truth. There's really so much information that doesn't go out properly, and there are a lot of people who are suffering what they shouldn't suffer if only they have access to the right info. So we can only continue. I also get threats, a lot of threats.
Wow.
Threats.
I can even imagine you're even a lawyer.
Yeah,
I can imagine your
almost on a daily basis, from men, from women, even from the family of people you are trying to help. So it has become a common thing. But doctor, I think we should go straight into the topic now. First of all, I did a little apology on behalf last week as well, but we are really glad we have you today. Really glad we have you today. So now, just a quick introduction. I've gone through your content and what you do, and surprisingly, I know somebody that knows you very, very close. In fact, when I saw your profile and I saw she follows you, I asked her that, tell me something about Doctor. She said, if you can get Doctor in your life, you have an expert. yeah, you have an expert. I'm sure you know Busola Perez. She's a very, very good friend of mine. Very good friend.
Yes, I do.
She has a lot of good recommendations to give. So I'm very sure that this session is going to be mind-blowing, and I'm sure we'll learn a lot.
I'm looking forward to be able to do justice to it.
Thank you very much, Doctor. So now I think we should first start with a general overview of what therapy is. I think that there's a lot of misconception that we get from social media, from movies, from the industry on what exactly therapy does. So I think your opinion would help us correct what exactly therapy is.
Okay, so thank you so very much. I want to be as flat-footed as possible and not use a lot of psychological jargons, but I will just simply say that therapy is a tool that helps people who seek it to resolve their past, heal from their pain, and begin to live a life that is holistic and that will help them be all that they were designed to be. In very simple terms, I will put it that way. So because in Europe and America, the word counseling is more pronounced than therapy and coaching. So a lot of times, counseling is what a lot of people gravitate towards. However, to be contextual and to be able to bring diversity into my answer, I usually like to say that coaching and therapy are tools that counselors use to get them from where they are to where they desire to be. So that's basically how I would put it in the two very broad context.
Okay, I mean, you said something very instrumental in the response you gave. You said it helps people become what they need to be. So one question I always ask is, does there need to be a problem before therapy should be explored? Or is therapy something people should even consider before the problem arises?
Okay, thank you. So people come to me for premarital coaching, premarital counseling. And I always say to them that I don't do premarital counseling. They say, I know, somebody said they're very good at it. I say, well, I do integrative premarital counseling. Then they begin to ask, what's integrative? I said, I don't help you go forward without helping you go backward first. Because a lot of people haven't resolve the challenges they have in their childhood. People have had significant emotional experiences. People have been raised by, not too proper education, parented by proper parents who had the proper education, rather. People have been victims of domestic violence. People have grown up in homes that are dysfunctional. So what I found is a lot of people love the potential of who they see, not who they see at themselves. So when you find people who are from dysfunctional background, people who haven't healed from their life experiences, they carry all of that baggage into marriage, and they're hoping that their fiancé will resolve a problem their father started. I've also met women who are looking for their father in their fiancé. So when I speak with ladies who have father issues, whose father were not emotionally there and they were physically distant, they often look for their father in their fiancé. And that relationship is dead on arrival. So each time he's saying, kiss me, love me, he's saying, what daddy should have done, I'm still trying to look for it.
True.
That's why you will find women who try to correct their husband but begin to love their children. That's not the way it works. The right thing to do for women when they get married is to love their children, love their husband and correct their children. I'll give an example there. The son drops a cup of water on the rug in the living room. Then the mom picks it up and says, why did you drop this thing here? You're a naughty boy. Takes the cup to the kitchen. The father comes back home, is tired, forgets his blazer in the living room, and is hounding the guy and saying, why can't you keep your things in one place? As much as I'm not encouraging men to be disorderly, but I'm saying dysfunctional background oftentimes give room for dysfunctional approach to life. So they are loving their children and correcting their husbands. And that's a misplacement of priority.
Interesting. I think it actually sheds a lot of light. I'm hearing this area of therapy for the very first time. And I think as you were speaking, something just came to mind, and I think I should just ask it right away. Now, how does this affect both if for instance two people want to get married, and of course most times when people even approach counselors, they already have a date in mind or a period in mind. Now, how does this therapy help? Has it ever happened in your experience that after going through this process with couples, they then found out that probably there's a journey they need to walk alone? Or is it possible for couples to still walk this journey together and still have that marriage of the dreams? We're still going to men, but I just want us to have this foundation.
Yeah, I like the fact that it's organic and we will just touch the necessary area. So yes, I have been a part of counseling sessions where both of them found out that it wasn't going to work. The guy came from a dysfunctional background. The lady also from a dysfunctional background, and they found out that they were just not going to work. So I do a lot of psychometric tests. Part of what I believe any professional should do is to be able to deploy psychometric tests, because I don't have time to say, what did Shade do for you? He now slap me. No. I just deploy questionnaires. And when I deploy questionnaires, by the time I look at it, I interpret it. I usually can tell them in 1 hour of interpreting their questionnaire what their potential conflict area will be, what their personality types will be, what are the things they need to work on. So psychometric tests help us detect that. And there are personality types that usually, I won't say they won't work, but they require a different threshold. Okay. Like I like to say that relationship must exist despite of imperfect behavior.
Very true.
Any couple that's waiting for a perfect behavior for relationship to work, they will wait forever. Because there are good men and there are good women there, but there's no perfect husband, there's no perfect wife.
Absolutely.
All right, and that's why even the good book says that love does not keep record of wrong. Love bears all things. Love endures all things. So sometimes marriage is between enduring all things, you know, and ensuring that your threshold for the gaps, the knowledge gap, the skill gaps, the attitudinal gaps are overlooked. So for a man or a woman that doesn't have the ability to forgive or does not have the ability to come to the table to give, they usually will hit the rock. So there are 5 different kind of tests I do for people that come for premarital counseling. We do the personality assessment, okay? Then we do the belief assessment, because the general teaching from churches is don't be equally yoked with an unbeliever. Means that a Christian should not marry a Muslim or a Muslim should not marry an Hindu. But that's not true. When we say don't be equally yoked with an unbeliever, I mean that even though we might attend the same church, if I believe in tithing and you don't believe in tithing, we are unbelievers to each other for that context.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
Yeah. So
That's new insight.
if you believe in serving in the local church and I don't believe it, for that context, we are unbelievers to each other. So we do beliefs assessments, we do personality assessment, we do we look at the history of both parties, because really and truly, husband and wife don't fight. It's their beliefs that clashes. We do values assessment. It's their values that clash. Because a lady had lived in a home for 25 years, he must be an ambassador of the values of those houses. A man had lived in a house for 28 years, he must be an ambassador of those values, regardless of how right or wrong they are. So when the both of them come together, what causes fight most time is value clash, belief clash, okay, personality clash. So when those clashes are so recurrent, we recommend, I've recommended for a couple before to sign up for a 3 months therapy, because particularly the wife had, she was a victim of rape. She had an accident at a time. She was the only survivor. She's had different heartbreak. I listed about 7 different things, and those are layers of healing. So I said to both of them, I will attend your wedding if I'm free. But the reality is that these are the potential areas where you will have issue. So I said, as a coach, I don't tell people what to do. I guide them, I help them pin the options available to them. Then I tell them to think of the consequences, point the consequences to them. Then I tell them to go and make a choice. Because the truth be told, everybody has a perspective of what they think is right from wrong. And that's why coaching just isolates me. I'm like a catalyst. I just help you facilitate whatever you think aligns with your objective at that time. And every objective is subjective to, knowledge, is subjective to experience, but I must tell you the truth, it's usually an interesting journey. So yes, it can work. Yes, sometimes it doesn't work. But those people who come to the negotiation, you're a lawyer. There's something you lawyers say. They say that the most powerful person is the one who is willing to walk away from a deal. Am I right?
Very true.
So when I find a lady who already is feeling like I'm not complete without being married, even when they're seeing red flags, they will use white cloths to cover the red flag and say that's the will of God for my life, like they say in Christian Palace. All right. So, and I just tell them consequences. Many people like to make choices, but they don't like the consequence, to think of the consequences of their choices. And that's the very, very difficult thing I found, especially among the people who are trying to get married now. They just want to glide over the consequences of the decision they've made. And there's no decision without a consequence, no matter how small or no matter how big it is.
Very true. Very true. Very true. Wow, Coach, you're saying a lot. You're saying too much for us to even breathe. Let us breathe a bit. No, I mean, you're saying you're giving a lot of insight, and I think I don't. There's a lot of questions I want to ask, but we won't go to the main topic of today if I do that. But I'm hearing some things for the very first time, especially where you said people, husband and wife, naturally don't fight. It's their value system, belief system, and personality that come clashing. And I think this forms a lot of foundation which we don't preach enough. We don't preach. And then you've literally digressed from the general biblical understanding
Let's
of
go back.
being
Let's go back.
yoked.
But I need to. Sorry for
Yes,
for
please go
stopping,
ahead.
for interrupting you. So I know that you are a Christian, and apologies, I'm a player in that field also. But I do a bit of itinerating, and those that I'm close to, I always say this to them: a lot of our counseling manual in churches are obsolete.
Hmm.
There's nobody who signed up for there's a product we have called marital distress therapy. You know, when husband and wife get to a point where they've had to either separate or has gone to domestic violence, there are questionnaires they fill, and I always ask there, did you go for marital counseling? Over 85% go for marital counseling, and yet the marital counseling does not have as much impact, does not have as much usable, transferable knowledge that will sustain the marriage. So for a few churches, I've also had to help them revamp their marital counseling manual, because some people are still using the marital counseling that the GO did. It has to be reviewed. For
Very
that dispensation, it works. In the
very
dispensation we have now, you've got to be, any marital counseling that does not deploy psychometric test is dead on arrival. Because I can't use what I tell Tope because he worked for Tope. I now carry the same knowledge and go and give Lanre. They're two different personalities. They might be both from Ijebu, they might be both Yoruba, they might be both 28 years, they might be both cholerics. But the experiences are different. So
very
that's why coaching has to take place. Coaching is helping you with having a profile of you, using that as data. Because you see, my first session, I call it the data mining session. I mine data from you. I use that data to guide our conversation on our journey to transformation. So once I can mine your data and find that these are the things peculiar to you, it shapes the kind of question I ask you. It shapes the kind of intervention. But when they now put 5 people in a class, now there can be generic knowledge,
yes.
right? But for those people who truly want solution, any marital counseling has to be bespoke at some level. That's when it can be usable. There are too many generic knowledge out there, and many people are still victims of, or they still end up, you know, eating their wives. I've met professors, tongue talking, Bible carrying, who still slap and beat their wife, and they're shocked, but they're just a victim of their history. And if you ask all of them, they'll say, oh, my father used to beat my mom. And subconsciously, because our conscious mind is always catching up with our subconscious mind. So subconsciously, they have pictured how to deal with a woman that upsets them. They get married and they tell everybody, I will never beat my wife. Only for it to be 1 year into the marriage, and the woman gets to church and they're asking, but then what happened to your eyes? She has to lie that he fell from a bike. But it was daddy that turned her to a punching bag. You know?
Interesting.
I think I needed to put that in. I'm been championing that for those who are flexible enough to admit the truth. But a lot of marriage counseling manuals needs upgrading.
I agree with you. Absolutely agree with you on that. Absolutely agree with you. I've also had a session where I pushed this out, and now that you're saying it, I think it's also important that we also include the legal leg of the consequences of all these things. Domestic
Yeah,
violence. People need to know that both victim and perpetrator have their consequences to it. Their
yeah,
consequences. So coach, let's go into the main topic. Our agenda. Let's speak to our agenda properly. Now, generally African men, and I think this is an African men issue. Maybe it
yeah,
becomes even worse with Nigerian men. And I'm not innocent in that regard as well. We do not subscribe to therapy. Now, we do not even subscribe to sharing our burdens with just random people. So I think men generally have pockets of circles of friends for different purposes. There are the friends who give the financial advice. There are the friends who give the marital advice. There are the friends who give the good. Some even give the bad advice. Now, so from your own professional perspective, coach, what do you think forms the basis for why men, whether married, single, or divorced, why they move away from therapy? And then I think I should also add this question. Now, from the years of experience you've had in the field, because I had this argument to somebody and I said, if you ask most specialists, they will tell you that majority of their clients are women.
Absolutely.
Men run away from therapy. So, Coach, I would like your inputs on that.
Okay, so it started, for me, I think that is a lot of tradition, because I'm sure you've heard things like real men don't cry,
Yeah.
tough it out, man up.
Yeah.
We've all had these phrases before, and while they've become commonplace, these expressions reinforce outdated expectations of what men should and shouldn't do, right? And when it comes to mental health, this has led to the misconception that men don't have and aren't even supposed to seek help. Obviously, I mean, this could be further from the truth. I mean, this is a total lie from the truth. It's not just true, because obviously a lot of men are going through pain. I mean, let's even bring it generally. Generally, we all experience pain. We all experience happiness, sadness, anger, and a range of, emotions. But men aren't encouraged to talk about them. And you see, this make men averse to any kind of mental health solution, but make them submissive to mental health or substance abuse that they don't even seek treatment for. So, I mean, if men really hate therapy, what can we do about it? Because the stats have shown that time again and again how damaging it can be to ignore our mental health needs. But by looking at some of the explanations of why men tend to be more treatment averse, we can begin to develop solutions for overcoming the stigma associated with therapy, and help men realize that recovery takes strength. That's always something I say. More than 90% of my clients are women, but for them, I always like to say that recovery takes strength, and there's nothing weak about safeguarding your mental wellness. Okay? Without further ado, I will mention 3 areas that we need to poke a hole into when we're talking about our mental. The first one is it's biology. I mean, it's simple biology. Men and women are hardwired differently. We're wired differently. And studies suggest that women have an easier time identifying, expressing emotions. They score higher in tests of empathy, emotion regulation, recognition, social sensitivity, while men are more likely to keep things bottled up. And that's not to say that men don't have feelings or respond to emotional cues. No. But the way they process them differs from the way a woman processes it. Okay? So the cultural norms encourage them to calm, be cool, be collected under any circumstances, man up. And this has conditioned men to ignore difficult emotions rather than dealing with them. And that leaves few options for healthy outlets. All right. So biology can also explain the consequences of untreated mental health issues, because we now know that mental illness is a complex condition, affected by various factors like genetics, trauma, the brain, chemistry, and environment. So it's not some moral failing or a sense of weakness. No, but a real medical problem that can manifest in a number of ways. And some of the symptoms include, people just shout, people, expressing emotions, bottling up emotions. I had a session this afternoon, and I was talking to a team of people, and I was saying that nobody dies of old age. Oh, and one lady said in the comment section, oh, really? I said, yes. People die because one vital organ in their body wears out faster than the other.
That's true.
So when people hold on to anger, when I do emotional intelligence, people say, are you now saying we should not talk again? I say, keep fighting, but think of the consequences, because all of the negative emotions, they have effects on organs of the body. For example, anger affects liver, unforgiveness affects kidney. I mean, if you read the book Deadly Emotions by Don Colbert, you will find it there. All right. So one part of it is biology. Naturally, the way men are wired, They're wired more to want to just bottle up. Women are more expressive. The second one is cultural. So cultural norms are another reason why men tend to avoid therapy. Some men spend their whole lives bombarded by messages, cliches, old adages that tell them to be taught, to not cry. And they're taught from a young age that showing emotion is a sign of weakness.
Yeah, that's true.
And this can stay in them through adulthood. And that often resulting in avoidance of vulnerability and creating a mindset that makes it hard to open up to others. And you see, this hasn't done men any favor. I have had to jump on, depression by notable men in the society. But by the time I do 1 or 2 sessions, I refer them to psychotherapy because once hallucinations start to come in, or their cognitive abilities are no more coherent, I have to recommend to a psychiatric. And once you get to a psychiatric, it's 50-50. They're not even sure. So when people come to my office and they come and make the inquiry, especially when it's maybe very early stage of depression, not yet clinically diagnosed depression, they say things like, "Oh, you are expensive." I say, "Well, you don't worry. It's sad, but there's no better way to say the truth. I just pray you don't have to pay more for being in, number one, pay more emotionally and pay more financially for being in a psychiatric center, because the ones I have around me, your first deposit is 3 million naira. The sad part is even that there's, I have psychiatric doctors who I partner with, where I know my own boundary stops. And let me tell you the truth, I have a relation who is meant to be in a psychiatric home at the moment. With all my plugs, the earliest date I got is end of October. They are filled up. People depressed, people victim of the filled up from Yaba to Lekki, from the bottom of the pyramid to, so it's just unfortunate that some of this information is not properly, put out there. So how do we combat that? One way is to break the stigma of mental illness and normalize the need for seeking help. Because while we've come a long way in this regard, feeling of guilt or shame still prevents many men from taking charge of their mental illness. So I always say to men, when I have the forum, I'd like to digress into it. Learn to be open up. Learn to open up about your own mental health needs, your own mental health care. How things like stress, isolation, uncertainty affect you. Because by sharing our own experiences, we can create more transparencies around substance abuse, mental health issues, foster a greater sense of, collectiveness. I just got off the call from a protege that we're meant to see tonight. I said, "Oh, I'm babysitting." I said, "Please stop what you're saying. I want a picture of that babysitting now. Put it on your status." He said, "Why?" He said, "We need to prove to the next generation that carrying a baby for your wife is not helping your wife, is being responsible."
Absolutely.
Because when I speak to men, I like to shake tables. I like to say that cooking is not for women. Cooking is for anybody that is hungry.
Okay. I'll pause that one.
No, because men will say, "Well, come and take your child. Come and take your child." No. When she's in the market or she's in the salon and you carry the baby, you are not helping your wife. You are being responsible. Don't get it twisted.
Very true.
All right.
Very true.
So thirdly is status quo. So I talk about biology. I talked about culture. The third one I'll talk about is status quo. So we get in and find out that change is scary. Because most people will prefer to maintain the status quo, whether good or bad, rather than rock the boat. That's what I found out. Because while often done to minimize the risk of a worse outcome, this way of thinking also means that we miss out of the potential benefits of a better alternative.
Very true.
So when it comes to therapy, many men might find it reluctant because they're not sure what to expect. I've had a man sign up for a session and he said, "Please, can I come at 10:30 p.m.? I said, "No problem."
When you are not collegious. What's that?
Nicodemus that wants to come
I
out.
mean,
I said, no
Nicodemus,
problem.
what's his name? Can you imagine?
He's fighting with stigma.
Wow.
All right. So
Huh.
digging deep into the problem or issues often means this. I mean, deconstructing perceived or preconceived ideas or notion
Yes.
and letting go of the illusion that everything is fine.
Hmm.
Because while men might be content with how things are, others in their life may be concerned about their mental health or want to communicate more openly. So, question I always ask is avoiding the threat of change worth sacrificing healthy relationships
Okay.
for? Obviously, the answer is no.
No, of course not.
So our tendency to stick with what we know is called the status quo bias. I want to say that again. Our tendency to stick with what we know is called the status quo bias. It's a bias. It often arises when we are faced in complex decisions, when we're in doubt, doing nothing. But one way we can overcome a status quo bias is by thinking about the situation in a different way. For example, when asked if, you know, we did come for therapy as an option to improve their relationship with mental, a lot of men might say no. If what I say to women is, both of you have issues, you go come and seek help. Let your difference convince him to come, because nobody is moved by similarity. We're only moved when there's difference. When you do something, when something happens and you react in a different way, then you say, oh, I think there's help where you are coming from.
Yes.
But you see, when men are presented with the scenario from another angle, that will make them to look at it and now begin to give it a trial. Because by changing perspective, and refusing to accept dissatisfaction with their current state of affairs, especially by people that are close to them, that allows them to open up to the possibility of accepting help and addressing their problem through therapy. Okay, then finally, maybe I'll talk about it's a lost cause. Many men have trouble connecting with their inner emotions and admitting their problems. I mean, many men are very delusional. All right, they don't just want to admit the fact that they are struggling with a particular thing, even to a therapist. And my lawyer used to say there are 4 people you should not lie to: your lawyer, your doctor, me, I added your therapist. So a lot of men think that therapy can't help them. So for this and countless other reasons, but you see, recovery is like anything else in life. You get back what you put into it. If you think it's all a big waste of time going into it, then it probably will be. Beginning a therapy session by saying, I want to improve my mental health, but I don't want to change this or talk about this, it's like saying you want to lose weight but refuse to stop eating junk. It's just going to happen. So it is essential to go into therapy with an open mind. And if you need to take things slow, you can set the pace and talk about whatever you are comfortable with until you establish trust, rapport with the therapist. So coming prepared with a list of topics to discuss beforehand can also be helpful, especially if you're feeling overwhelmed with the process. But I always say to people, trust the process. Many people have gone through the process. If you trust the process, you can be next in line for a testimony. So, no matter how men are feeling, I always say to them, remember that your therapist isn't there to judge you or to shame you. We're here to help you take an honest look at yourself, develop strategies, equip you with tools that will help you to grow and be all that God had designed you to be. Let me stop there. I think I'm talking too much.
I don't even know what to say again, Coach. I don't, because with your erudite elucidation of this topic, you've literally run through all the questions I have, and I'm even looking for which one, as Coach has spoken about. There's really nothing left. There's nothing left to say. But I think one question which I often get, professionally speaking now, as a divorce specialist, most times in fact all the time, my approach to divorce is, before you even tell me to file, ensure that you listen to my advice of giving one last attempt at resolution. Now, of course, there are exceptions to this, if there's domestic violence and all the other things. But generally speaking, I've observed that when you tell people to give one last attempt to resolution, the next question they ask is, how? We've tried this all over and over. We've had family meetings, their family, our pastors, we invited pastors. And I say to them, have you tried a professional therapist or a professional marriage counselor? Because your pastor is a spiritual guy. Doesn't mean he's a therapist. He may have the spiritual knowledge and all that. So now my question is this, coach. At the point where a man knows for certain that there are issues which he feels he needs to talk about, because I've heard a lot of I'm depressed, a lot of issues are happening, you can't understand. The question is this: how do people walk away from, because many things are triggers, and I believe, as a therapist, you would also enlighten us on that. How do people walk away from their triggers if they are living in those triggers? Take, for instance, somebody who is having issues in the marriage, and the person who is probably the catalyst to those issues, they are seeing each other every day, waking up, breathing the same here in the same enclosed space. Now, how do people come to the light of, okay, I need to do therapy, but is it possible to do it outside of my home? Do I need to first separate from my husband while we both attempt therapy without breathing violence on ourselves? What's your thoughts on this, Rich?
Thank you so very much. So I have been to Eco twice. Unfortunately, the 2 times I've been there, I've had to emotionally support 2 different families who had lost their daughters to domestic violence. Sadly so. So depending on the intensity, so when it gets, this is always what I say, when it gets to a point where domestic violence sets in, I always recommend for both parties to separate, then let them seek professional help. Then they can give it an attempt whether it can work again. Because why are issues happening? When there's a difference between a vice, when something is a vice and when you are ignorant. When a policeman goes to police college and he cannot shoot a gun, that is a vice. When a doctor holds a gun and he cannot shoot it, that is ignorance.
Very true.
All right?
Very
because
true.
he wasn't trained to do it.
Very true.
Now, when husband and wife get into marriage and it didn't work, that is a vice. Sometimes it's plus vice and ignorance, because the modus or the marriage is like swimming. And once you decide that you want to swim, you can't swim on your own terms. You have to be able to swim on the terms of the water. If you swim on your own terms, you will die on your own terms.
Absolutely.
So the same thing, a lot of people don't have the required knowledge that will make marriage work. Many people go into marriage with assumptions. And they say assumption is the lowest level of knowledge.
Knowledge, very.
All right. So I always say to people, to couples, once both of you can make it work, stop pointing and using finger. Both of you are liable to what is happening. Both of you must take responsibility to why it did not work. Because there are things you do by omission and commission. There are things that you do by knowing the right thing and not knowing the right thing. So I always say to people that if you get to a point where it gets physical, you don't know enough. And the first thing is you have to first admit that we don't know enough. Secondly, you need to separate, because the environment that hurt you oftentimes will not heal you. And I want to say that the environment that hurt you oftentimes will not heal you. So you need to separate, then seek therapy individually. So a marital distress therapy is usually a 12-session therapy. Then I'll do 3 months of follow-up before I tell them to even go together again. So I do 3 sessions each with wife, 3 sessions with husband. Then I do 6 with both of them together. Then after that, they'll now do checkup, marital checkup for 3 months. And it's not about what I will ask them. There are psychometric questions that we deploy that will help me know the state of things. Then after that, I can recommend give it an attempt. That's usually what I recommend for people who are getting to that level. For people who maybe they are emotionally distant, they're living in the same house, because I've worked with a couple before where both of them move to different rooms, because separation and divorce have different definition now. There are people
Yes.
who are in the same house but they are divorced.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I've worked with a couple before that they only
Absolutely.
communicate by WhatsApp message and letters. They even abuse each other. Where your children's school fees have expired though.
Ah,
It's 420,000. Yeah, I'm not joking.
wow.
No sex, nothing. But they want to keep the status quo of we're married. Unfortunately, they're also putting the children into a dilemma, because you see, children are like sponge. I've worked with several teenagers who have said to me, I will never marry. I said, why won't you marry? I said, because my parents' marriage never works. My uncle's marriage never worked. Our landlord's marriage never worked. So how do you want to? I mean, I've met several ladies of marriageable age that said, I just want to be a baby mama. Just don't want to say yes to any man anywhere. They're not right, but they're not also wrong. They're looking at the shenanigans of baby mamas on social media. They don't know that it takes the eyes of a village to raise a child.
Yeah.
So it depends on the state at which the marriage is. And usually, that's why I said you can't help people in this generation without deploying psychometric tests. You don't need to reinvent any wheel. Just come up with a psychometric test that can help you elicit where the challenges are. It saves you time, saves you money, and makes you, in fact, for me, I combine scriptures and science. Because I strongly believe that there is science in scripture and there's scripture in science. Symposium discussion, I'll leave it for another day. But the reality is the psychometric test that will determine what we're going to deploy as an intervention for the marriage to work.
Absolutely. I agree with you. And then you said something which I noted, Coach. The way you said the environment that hurt you, it's impossible for that same environment to also heal you. Now, one question which I would like to ask, I have a few questions, Coach. Now, I think I asked it earlier, but now, would you say therapy, because if men are running away from therapy, and we've established today that therapy is a solution, it's not something to up and leave from, it's something to consider and really give a thought. Now, if men are running away from therapy, I mean, besides all the things you've listed, you mentioned biology, the reasons why men run away from therapy. Now, from professionally speaking, what are the advantages and the disadvantages of employing therapy or opening up to therapy, if I'll put it like that?
Okay, so there's a link to happiness. So let me put it this way: therapy leads to more productivity. All right. So I always say that positive emotions lead to greater productivity, and happiness gives you a real chemical edge. How? Because positive emotions flood our brains with dopamine, serotonin, chemicals, that not only make us feel good, but help us to dial up learning centers of our brain to higher levels. In other words, feeling positive emotions allow you to work harder, learn more, because of the feel-good chemicals in your brain. So while productivity isn't everything, most of us have too much to do and not enough time to do it. Right? Especially those of us with demanding jobs and those of us with kids, increasing our level of happiness. You see, and with your productivity, not only should you look out for the things that help you, you should also look out for the things that help you, that can help the people around you. So therapy helps you in your career because it helps you cope with the messiness and the hectic pace of life. You will agree with me that we're in a fast-paced world.
Yeah.
And I've also said to people that therapy can also help you discover obstacles blocking you from performing at your best as a husband, as a CEO. And these types of roadblocks, for example, perfectionism, overthinking, are challenges a therapy can help you walk through to find an effective solution. And you see, you and your therapist usually, what happen in therapy? You and the therapy can also discuss, the time management skills, whether challenging negative long-term habits such as poor prioritization or inaccurate assessment. All of this could help with, your focus and your productivity. right? So the bottom line of it is that these types of changes that therapy brings on the table lead to long-term benefits, such as increased work performance, greater feelings of self-efficiency, even improved relationships. So those are the things I always say to men who are trying to ask, what will I gain from it? First thing I'm always quick to say is that you will get to a point where you will come to a conclusion that therapy helps you feel happier on a deeper level.
Very true.
Talking over your past, present, and future with the therapist can lead you to a greater sense of self-understanding, because while self-understanding doesn't always simply mean self-acceptance, it's the first step towards truly embracing who you are and ensuring that you take the journey to who you truly want to be. Because a related concept is self-compassion, and you see, greater self-compassion helps you to handle the bumps in the road that invariably or inevitably happen in your life without getting stuck in the mire of the negativity of what has happened. So therapists especially help person-focused situation such that the partnership between the therapist and the clients helps them to learn self-compassion, tangible benefit, tools that are usable, among many other things. The list is endless. But the truth about it is that we need to collectively fight the stigmatization that is out there with therapy. Therapy is not spooky. It's a tool, that helps you put a balance, help you get better perspective, deepen your awareness. I mean, the list is endless. I can go on and on and on and on. But I just want to keep it that way because I know we have just about 8 minutes and there are more questions to ask.
Yes. I mean, I for all those on the live, please, if you have questions, please drop them in the question box or the comment section. So, Coach, I think I will start drawing the curtain to a close because I really want to get your thoughts because I'm very particular about with everything you've said. A defining point is what is the way forward. I mean, we've established the problem, we've established the possible personality types, the issues. We've established the biological, the cultural, and the status quo problems as to why men run away from therapy. Now, the final point would then be what then is the way forward? How do we need to preach it more? Do we need to tell men to dissolve? There are so many circles of comfort, in other men or even other female friends and all that, and really going to speaking to professionals who can really help, whether single men, whether married men, whether divorced men. What is the way forward?
Yeah, like I said earlier, a lot of men are treatment averse. I mean, for a number of reasons, including the ones I mentioned earlier. But you see, whether a reluctance to begin therapy or any form of treatment is usually due to difficulty expressing emotion, cultural norms, fear of changing, or fear of change or thinking. It's all just a big waste of time, narrative. I think that it's important that we begin to shift the narrative and get men thinking about their mental health in a different way. Because mental health issues have a big impact on our overall health and well-being, and ignoring them doesn't make them go away. So while clinicians, people who do clinical therapy, might deny the consequences of trying to deal with the things like depression, anxiety, abuse, and all of that, the number of men who overdose or die by their own handy chair is evidence that we need campaign. We need the National Orientation Agency to jump on this call to be able to do more awareness. I'm sure you see what is happening now. There's a drug now, I forgot the name right now, that makes them do slow motion, all of the retinol, all of this. It's an epidemic in a pandemic. The reason why most rehabs are filled is because there are a lot of people, particularly men, who have, taken that journey to begin to indulge in substance abuse, and it's a disease of the it's a disease that is of the neural system. It's self-replicating. Once they start one, you'll just be looking for it. just be looking to meet up that need. So we need religious leaders, we need men who have gone through therapy to do videos, to begin to demystify it. I've had a few men who have come to therapy. I think their sessions are very confidential. Do you mind if I share your experience? Some people have agreed, some people have denied, and I have to respect their boundaries. But we need more men to come up to say, there's nothing like men don't cry. You are a human being. You are not a human of logic, or a human of emotions. Because emotions drive people and people drive performance. Okay, so if you want to perform better, you must own up to the fact that you are an emotional being, regardless of what society says, regardless of what culture says, regardless of the bias that is out there. So it becomes instructive that we make more noise about it, collectively, from mosques to churches to sessions. Then also for our women to also not just talk about the fact that they don't want to go into it, but to find better ways of having the very ugly conversations with their husband. So it's a collective. It's still part of the stigma problem that mental health has, to do less stigmatization. So we need men who can be advocates of seek therapy. We can even get social media guys to say, I mean, I have a video on my phone. I think it was unfortunately, this is the only way I can describe it. This short musician, is not as popular now. Very short. He got married recently. He was depressed. He went to therapy and he did a video. I can't remember his name. I mean, forget that kind of a person. Tunji, what's her name? Tiwa Savie's former fiancé or husband, also had gone to therapy and had done sessions with Mr. Larry Lushala. So when we get, just the same way they get influencers to advertise product, we need influencers to say, I've gone through therapy, it's not spooky, and use their office, use their influence, their brand to get more traction and reduce the stigma so that men can seek therapy and we can have a whole where men are more humane, they're more civil, there's more empathy, and so we can have a world that is better than we met it. That's my very candid opinion.
Absolutely. I really share your passion, coach, and I think it's very instrumental. All possible platforms pull together knowledge and wisdom in this regard, because I don't like replicating lives and topics that will just be for the purpose of coming live and sharing. I believe that it's important we go the next step of really pushing people to see the usefulness, and I can't agree less with you. I absolutely agree with your thoughts, and in our own little way, which is why we've brought this live, so people can, all these things you've shared, I'm sure there are things that people will pay good money to hear, but you've definitely been kind enough to share. So coach, I really appreciate your thoughts, I appreciate your time, I appreciate everything you've shared with us. Those on the live who have joined, I'm sure you've also learned something. I've heard a lot of new things, and some things I would also be imputing into my own practice, so that when clients come to me, I'm saying some wisdom that I learned from Coach Tunji, and hopefully they'll pay more money. But Coach, I am really appreciative. Thank you for of course. I also have some things in the pipeline that I'm working on. I'm sure that when the time is right, we'll definitely partner and see how we can bring more men into understanding that mental health is not traditional. There are solutions that can help you really be the best for yourself, which I think is the very starting point. Before you want to be a man of the house, or the best dad to your children, or the best husband, to your wife, first ensure that you have the best of yourself to offer. So I really appreciate everything. Coach, thank you for your time. Thank you for very rich 1 hour of your time. Very rich 1 hour of your time. It's been a privilege.
Thank you for having me.
We definitely will bring you back very shortly, much shorter than
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be back again.
Yes. Thank you so much, Coach. I think we can wind it up from here. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, everybody who joined the call. Thank you who joined the live. Thank you for joining and for listening. And this video will be on my page. Please always rewatch, share as much as you can. And I would even go back and rewatch myself and relearn some vital things myself. Coach, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing all of this. I think that one thing we can also do is to find how we can get influencers so we can have like a 3-4 way call. Because I have a philosophy, I don't like to sleep over things.
Okay.
So if we can pull out, I can reach out to 1 or 2 influencers. If you can reach out to 1 or 2, we can do a 1-month campaign on maybe we can title it "Break the Status Quo" buyers, men seek therapy. Then by the time we get influencers jump on the call, it will increase awareness, and it would also help men see that there's nothing about the stigma that is being attached to mental health issues. We could talk about that behind the
No
scene.
problem. No
Thank you
problem.
for having me.
I've already noted that, and I will definitely reach out to a couple of influencers. I also know who have gone through therapy, in their own little space as well. So, Coach, thank you very much. We would have further discussion and definitely come back to this. Really important. Really important. All right, Coach. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and
You too.
all those on the
You
line,
too.
have a lovely, lovely evening as well. Thank you, sir.